Hi everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. And in today's video, we're going to see if Thea the Tomb Angel, i.e. a hex-based damaging nuker, is any good in Hydra. Yeah, we're going to be testing that out in combination with Mithrala Lifebane. Apologies if I sound a bit off in today's video. Might have finally caught COVID, I'm not sure. Not feeling very good though, but it is what it is, right? Also, I did want to mention briefly, people are freaking out a bit over the go away offer over Platinum Arena. I believe that no one finished in Platinum Arena at the end of this reset, which is kind of hilarious. I talked about it in the video I did a couple of days ago, but basically the biggest problem is the low amount of points that you're getting for the easier wins. You have to go to these really difficult wins for a chance to get any meaningful points. And it just becomes extremely hard, and defensive battles are really punishing, and people simply can't climb up, and people are freaking out about this. They're going crazy. I think I saw people yesterday on Sunday, I think it was like Sunday night, I saw some people commenting going, why aren't Plarium fixing this right now? Because it's the middle of the night in the Ukraine, which is where they live on a Sunday. They're not at work, mate. They're not at work. But I expect this to be fixed very quickly over the next couple of days. If we do a bit of quick maths, there's 500 players potentially in Platinum. So let's roughball it as 500 players interested in competing in Platinum. And then we know for a fact that some of those guys at the top that they have spent, I think Boomer has said he spent something like $60,000 on this game. Something along that. Obviously, the people at the lower end of Plat aren't going to be spending anywhere near that much. But if we average it out, let's say $5,000 in terms of lifetime spend so far for those players in Platinum, you work that out, that's $2.5 million coming in from those players. Is Plarium going to sit there and do nothing if these players that are already spenders, that are spending all this money to compete against each other in PvP, are they going to like just leave it so they can't even do that and risk them quitting the game and not spending anymore? They're going to fix this so fast you won't even believe. It's kind of funny. They're not going to, these issues, they don't fix them for lower end arena. I guess because their stats and stuff show that, well, if people can't progress in arena, they're more likely to pay money. So they don't really care about it. But these guys that are already spenders, trust me, they're going to fix it real fast. I'm just going to throw that out there. So don't worry. I'm sure Platinum Arena will be, I would be shocked if Platinum Arena was not back and functioning within a couple of days, to be honest. Yeah, pretty much. Right, let's take a look at this Hydra stuff, though. I actually have it recorded. We're going to dive in. We're sort of a bit into the run. Basically, what is going on here? We're trying out Thea the Tomb Angel. Why are we trying out Thea? What does she do that's so cool? Well, for your typical sort of AoE nuker, I generally find like a good baseline multiplier on an AoE nuking ability is about a 4 times damage multiplier is fairly standard, right? That's a fairly standard multiplier to give you a good baseline to judge champions. You can see there goes a Hex Reaper. You can see how hard it's hitting. When you look then at a champion like Trunda, why does Trunda do so much damage? Well, Trunda's A3, which is the double hitter, has a 3 times multiplier, but it hits twice. So it actually has a 6 times multiplier, which is, that's 50% more damage. That was my phone, not you. 50% more damage than your typical legendary nuker, which is a huge amount of damage, right? She hits so hard with that 6 times multiplier. What about Thea's Hex Reaper then? Well, Hex Reaper has a 3.5 times damage multiplier. However, for every enemy under Hex, she gets 50% more damage. So if you have 2 enemies under Hex, it goes from a 3.5 multiplier to a 7 times multiplier. So 2 enemies under Hex, and her AoE hits harder than Trunda's AoE. If we have 4 enemies under Hex, like potentially in Arena or here in Hydra, she's going to get 200% more damage. It's going to go up to a 10.5 times multiplier. So this is just straight up, I think it is straight up by a significant margin, the 3rd hardest hitting ability in the game. Just in terms of the raw damage that it deals, I think Baron's Sky Piercer is number 1. That's his secret skill. That's very unreliable. And then Ruel the Huntsmaster does pretty much the same sort of damage as Thea with his Hex-based nuke as well. So you could repeat this test, I suppose, with Ruel as well. But yeah, that's why we're testing it out, because they just have such high raw damage. Does it actually work? I'm going to also, of course, talk about the general team comp in today's video as part of my sort of project here to help people out. People struggle on Hydra so much. So hopefully this is a completely different set of champions from, obviously, and this is going to be, as you can see from the damage, a 1-key hard Hydra run as well. I did another 1-key hard Hydra run earlier in the week. So now we've got 2 different runs. So you can, again, look at these 2 sets of champions, see which ones you have, and see how I'm building the teams. And I'm going to try to explain them so I can hopefully help people getting in a bit further and, yeah, making more stuff happen. Yeah, Thea. One problem we ran into here with Thea, guys, if we look at our composition, we have Thea to do damage, and Geomancer is our second damage dealer. We've got 2 damage dealers, Thea and Geomancer, and actually quite a good balance, right? Because Thea brings us pretty consistent AoE damage. Her A1 is a 2-hitter at random, and then Hex Reaper is a big AoE. Geomancer, though, brings us really good single target damage. So the 2 actually go very well together. Then we have Mithrala Lifebane. She is in here, of course, and this is what's really enabling us, because she gives Thea the 2 things that Thea really needs, which is increased attack and providing consistent AoE Hex. Now, Thea can actually apply a good bit of Hex herself with her A1, but Mithrala just makes it more consistent, and the increased attack is necessary. Then we have Ugo for defense down and block buffs. We have Shamrock for speed control, giving us increased speed and putting decreased speed on them. And then we've Godseeker Iniri to heal us up, to revive us if needed. Ugo's also doing some healing, and so on and so forth. We do get a ton of survivability from Mithrala, so we don't actually need that much healing, right? Mithrala's shielding and strengthening and increased defensing and cleansing does so much to keep us alive. We don't need too much. But Thea is quite squishy nonetheless, which is why we do have a reviver in there. And we did need to use it a few times in the run. One of the big problems that we ran into with Thea, though, in this comp, and unfortunately I couldn't really do anything about it, but I think you really want to run Thea with Rector Drath on the team, or a Duchess, if you've got a Duchess. I obviously don't. And the reason is very simple, which is Thea's A3 gives her an extra turn, and it's important to use that. It gets her back to her Hex Reaper faster, but it gives her Perfect Veil for 3 turns. Now, that in itself is supposed to be a really good thing. It gives her, 15% damage reduction from Perfect Veil. Helps her stay alive, which is great because she's super squishy. But as you could see right there from Head of Mischief, this is the problem. Because that Veil is an extra buff, and because the Head of Mischief targets whoever has the most buffs, Thea frequently makes herself the target for Head of Mischief, right? If Thea puts Perfect Veil on herself, and then our buffing supports come and put the buffs on afterwards, Thea is often sat there as the person with the most buffs. She gets targeted by Head of Mischief, and of course, we don't have Thea built with any resistance. She's built to nuke, which means that she gets her buffs stolen, and even worse, she gets her turn meter stolen. And this is a huge problem, actually. I'm going to do another run with her another time with Rector Drath, and we'll see how that works. But Rector Drath or Duchess, they give Perfect Veil to your whole team, so they sort of remove that thing as a problem. Rector Drath also has the nice benefit that whenever someone takes a turn with Perfect Veil, she heals them, which would turn Thea's self-Perfect Veiling into a very consistent source, and her extra turn mechanic into a very consistent source of some nice self-healing, some nice survivability, help her stay alive, which would be really good. You can see we've passed the 1-key damage now, by the way. So that's definitely something to watch out for. I found that to be a really big problem. But yeah, unless you've got someone giving your team Perfect Veil, Thea makes herself a target. She really does. It can also be somewhat tricky because of that extra turn mechanic to maintain that increased attack on her at all times. Sometimes she's going to be firing off those Hex Reapers without having increased attack, but it's just something you have to live with and to deal with. So yeah, it's just something to be aware of. But she does smack pretty hard. We'll see the damage numbers at the end when we get there. But in terms of the general stuff then for the rest of the team, I feel like Mithrala is kind of almost essential here. We could maybe do something with Thea if we brought in maybe like an Arbiter and a Lanicus, something like that, ally attacks, and have Thea apply her own Hex, because Thea does apply Hex for like 5 turns with her A1, so potentially we could make it work without Mithrala, but Mithrala just makes it more simple. And obviously with this comp, I've used my Lydia already, but a Lydia coming in would have been really good. That would have been super helpful. That would definitely push it to the next level. More consistent increased speed, with decreased defense and weaken to really up her damage. You can see, for example, here I have Shamrock. Shamrock's great, really good, but unfortunately he's not booked for me, so he has long cooldowns, which is a bummer. He's giving us increased speed and decreased speed, so you don't have full uptime on those compared to what you would have, and I will have whenever the next personal reward CVC comes around and I'm able to put my bucks into him. He's going to sort of skyrocket there. But yeah, we're actually able to deal with a lot of these different heads on hard difficulty. Thea, because she gives herself perfect veil, by the way, can rip through that head of torment pretty damn quickly. She really tears him apart, so that's not a huge problem, though the rest of our team is pretty badly affected by it. That is definitely an issue. Again, Rector Drath would help make that head of torment a non-issue. Even the head of wrath, because of the head of wrath got a little bit spooky, you'll see on the run. But it's not too bad because Mithrala gives us so much shielding and survivability. We can actually get through it. Actually, we're not going to get through it at this point. We're at the point now where we're getting eaten so quickly that the run's going to fall apart. In fact, if we skip on to the end, you can see it's pretty much coming out. Not much else is happening here as we come to the end. We're just getting munched. And we come out at the end, and here are the numbers. Here are the figures. This is how we did. 27.6 million damage on hard. And we can see that Geomancer is doing the bulk of the work here. Thea is coming in at 5.9 million damage, so quite a bit behind that. Quite a bit behind. Now, if we jump into the game here, we're going into hard. If we look at the battle list, you can see that my first one key team, we did 43.7, with Geomancer at 16 million, Royal Guard at 12 million. Okay, if we look then proportionately at our second run here, we can see Geomancer 11, Thea at about 6 million. So there's a bigger discrepancy there. So she's not doing as well as Royal Guard. Now, I do think there were two big contributing factors to this that put it off a bit. Contributing factor number one is that we didn't have decreased defense and weaken as consistent because we didn't have a Lydia in here. I think we bring in a Lydia and it starts to look a lot better in terms of that damage, right? She would be hitting harder. And then again, the other big issue was that she's the head of mischief target way too much, which really pushes her back, really hurts her. If we had a Rector Drath in, again, that would have helped. That would have helped a lot. But it becomes kind of tricky, right? Because, how do you get decreased speed in here, right? If we bring in a Lydia and we bring in Rector Drath, we kind of need someone to bring block buffs. And block buffs and decreased speed, that doesn't exist in the game. So what do we do? How do we play around that? That's where it becomes kind of tricky to get all those essential buffs. The way I look at it is, and what I like so much about this team, I'd really like to have 2 damage dealers, boom, boom, 2 damage dealers, and in fact, in this case, Mother Cybele, also kind of a damage dealer, 2 damage dealers, block buffs, increase speed, and decrease speed. I really like those, and then someone to heal, and he also heals as well. Like, having that full coverage is really nice. Decreased accuracy from Geomancer really nice as well. That's part of why, Krisk is so good. He brings all of those things. Why Lady Kimmy is so good. They bring so much. But it does become a little bit tricky. So, yeah, my thoughts on Thea. Is she good? Now, if we had a slightly better setup for her here, she would be doing better. I don't think that she's really going to massively outshine, though. Just your Royal Guards, your Husks and stuff like that. But she's going to be pretty comparable to them for normal and for hard. Certainly, I think when you go up to brutal, and definitely when you get to Nightmare, she's going to fall off massively. I would say, is she viable on Nightmare? I don't really think so. I just don't really see that happening. She's just not going to hit hard enough. They get too much defense scaling. Whereas Royal Guards and Husks, max HP damage, because their max HP is also increasing, their damage scales with it. So I think they're just way better there. For Brutal, even, I would still say it's not great. But for Hard and for Normal, I actually think that Thea is a decent option. She's not a bad option, especially one of the things I really like about her. And let me show you the build I have her in. Let me show you all the builds. She needs very few books. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books total to book her out. And you don't honestly need to book her A1 that much. You can just book her A3, her A2, and she's good. So the investment you need to get her up and running is actually relatively low. And she's going to perform decently well. She's going to actually do decently well, not amazing. If we put her into War Master, though, she would also do more damage. That would also be an extra chunk of damage that scales at max HP, which would bring her more in line. But she's certainly not blowing anyone out of the water, right? She's not completely outclassing the max HP nukers, but she's not crazy far behind. She's pretty comparable to them. I would also point out in terms of Trunda, Trunda is going to be way better than her. The thing with Trunda is this A2 ability is completely bonkers, because, you know, she hits a decapitated head, and then I think she does 60% of the damage, but she does it as like the original damage is true damage. It gets boosted by the first decapitated damage, and then if she hits another decapitated head with the second hit, it also benefits from like the 200% boosted damage. So Trunda's potential for damage is monstrously higher. She's way better because this A2 ability is completely busted. In terms of A3, though, this is not going to do anywhere near as much damage as Thea does. So Thea outclasses her there, but Trunda's A2 is on another level. So yeah, she's not going to be doing anywhere near what Trunda can do in terms of bullying those decapitated heads. But yeah, it's an okay. I mean, let me know what you think. I think because she's a guaranteed champion and doesn't need that many bucks, I think it's not a bad investment. I have her built out in Savage, 5,500 attack, 200 speed, 100% crit rate, and 242% crit damage. So a solid build, not an absolutely mind-blowing build, right, though. I would say for the higher levels of Hydra, you might want more speed, but for Arena, and she's very good in Arena as well, as just a massive nuke with Mithrala, 200 speed's pretty decent. You know, you might want to get her up to 220 or something, and you just sort of live with reaction hits because she hits so hard. That's something you can do. With Masteries, have her going down into Helm Smasher. Again, for Hydra, the better option would be War Master, but Helm Smasher I find is just better for Doom Tower and for Arena, and I use her in both of those places as well. So that is the Thea build. For Mithrala, she is built like this right now. I do have the guide on Mithrala. She's in just perception sets. And for her masteries, I have her in War Master, extended buffs and debuffs. So this is sort of a Hydra-centric build. You'd want a different build for Arena, but this still works pretty well in Arena as well. For the other champions we have coming in here, we had Shamrock. Here he is. He is in perception gear. No surprise. He's fast, tanky. That's about it. Best set for him would be Guardian set, but I don't have one for him ready to go right now, but he'd be good in that. As you can see, he's got one buck. Actually, he's got a couple of bucks, but nothing in the important stuff. When he's bucked up, he's going to be much better. He's going to go from a 4 and a 5 turn cooldown to a 4 and a 3 turn cooldown. That makes a big difference, but he is obviously a great champion, giving you a consistent source of increased speed. He can heal you, give you a revive on death when you're low on life. Stealing buffs, pretty damn nice. Decreased speed, some turn meter stuff, pretty good. And he is in extended buffs and debuffs and War Master again for the Hydra. Then we had we have Godseeker was in there. Godseeker coming in. She is War Master and some defensive stuff, which is okay. I'm gonna probably rebuild her at some point for higher Hydra difficulties. Very generalist build. I've talked about this in lots of videos before. I feel this build is too generalist. It's good, but I feel like we could probably do something better. Crank her HP up higher so she's tankier. Crank her speed up higher. Maybe crank her resistance. Forget about the accuracy and the crit rate and stuff would be my sort of feeling. But she's in a regen set. It works fine for hard. It's good for hard Hydra, but you push up into brutal or to nightmare, and this build really starts to falter. It's been what I have found with the testing that we've done. We were using this Geomancer who's in deflection set for Bommel. He's fast, tanky, good accuracy, and that's pretty much about it. He has War Master, extended debuffs, and better chance to place debuffs for that decreased accuracy on his A1, which is one of those crucial debuffs you really want to bring. I think that was everyone, right? Pretty sure that was everyone. Ugo, one more. Ugo's still really good this rotation, guys. She's still great. Not the best affinity, so she's not as consistent, but she does get block buffs out on Head of Mischief and Head of Decay. Head of Wrath when he comes in as well. Head of Torment, she does put it on those two. So she's still quite good. Decreased defense and block buffs. It's just the fact that these two things on one champion is so good. Small chance to leech on her A1, the healing on her A3. She's in Perception, shockingly. She's built to be tanky and have high speed. Again, much like Shamrock, she would be better in Guardian set. She's a prime candidate for Guardian set if you can still hit similar benchmarks for her stats. You want her to still be fast, high HP, good enough defense, and good accuracy, and that's really what you need. Resistance would be great as well, but I don't have that on her right now. For masteries, War Master, extended debuffs, and a higher chance to place debuffs. So there you go, guys. That was our look here today At Thea the Tomb Angel, is she good for Hydra? She's okay. She's okay. Not going to blow your socks off or anything. But a solid damage dealer, a decent option with Mithrala, certainly for normal, for hard, probably not so much for brutal, and certainly for nightmare. And whenever they add difficulties past nightmare, I think she's just not going to be able to keep up with the max HP scaling. But we're going to come back and I'm going to do another test with her. Maybe bring in something like Arbiter, something like Lanicus, some ally attack stuff, and see if she can be her own Hex provider. We can ditch the Mithrala, bring in some more speed, stuff like that, and see what we can make happen. So stay tuned for that. That will come soon. But guys, thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed. Good luck with your Hydra stuff this week as well. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.